Welcome to another episode of That's Not Cinema. I'm Jeffrey Hemingway. I'll be your host. Today's episode will be about Disney-Pixar's Onward. Take it away, Marty.
Value of a film that's like a theme park film, for example, the Marvel type pictures, where the theaters become amusement parks. That's a different experience. And it's not even. I was saying earlier, it's not cinema. It's something else. Not cinema. It's something else. Not cinema. It's something else. Not cinema. It's something else.
Okay, so Onward, directed by Dan Scanlon, written by Dan Scanlon, Jason Headley, and Keith Bunin, starring Tom Holland, Chris Pratt, Julia Louis-Dreyfus, and Octavia Spencer. Runtime of 114 minutes. Released in theaters March 6, 2020. Released on streaming March 20th, 2020. And the only reason why that is that streaming release is so close to that box office release is we're in unique times. We're all quarantined and practicing social distancing, and so Disney did us a favor and released this on streaming pretty early, because I mean, as we'll get to the box office numbers, $103 million for the box office numbers. And if you know anything about Disney Pixar, they're easily 800 million to a $1 billion picture, easily. So for them to only put up 103, clearly we're in unique times. So reportedly cost 175 to 200 million to make, and as I just said, 103.2 million dollars in the box office, and that's because Corona took a hit to Onward. Very much so. Corona took a hit to Onward. Rotten Tomato score, which means everything and nothing at the very same time. Critics score 87. Audience score 95. Audience is really dug this movie. I dug it too. I didn't really dug it, but I dug it. Okay, let's hop into the summary here. Set in a suburban fantasy world, Disney Pixar's Onward introduces two teenage elf brothers who embark on an extraordinary quest to discover if there's still a little magic left out there. So as far as expectations going into Onward, honestly, they were pretty tempered. Like I saw the trailer, didn't, blow me out of my seat. I was like, okay, this is cool. It's an original piece by Disney Pixar, and I'm in for original pieces by Disney Pixar. I mean, if you go off the past couple of years, we got Coco, we got Inside Out, Up. You know what I mean? Like an original piece by Disney Pixar is something usually you wanna stay attached to, or at least get excited for. And I was, like I said, I was excited but tempered, But I thought the trailer looked good, the animation looked good. I thought the premise was pretty cool. And pretty excited to see what it brought. The cast, I was in for the cast. Being the big comic book fan that I am, I'm a fan of Tom Holland, fan of Chris Pratt, Spider-Man and Star-Lord respectively. Fan of Julia Louis-Dreyfus, fan of Octavia Spencer. So I was like, okay, good cast. Animation looks great. It's Disney Pixar, of course. Animation looks great, and premise sounds interesting enough. So like I was in. Like I'm in. If it's typically if it's a Disney Pixar movie, I'm gonna go and see it. So rarely do they miss. Like outside of like the Cars franchise, and like what, A Good Dinosaur, and like maybe like Monsters University. And Monsters University is pretty good. I wouldn't put it in the same category as Good Dinosaur or any of the Cars movies. Like outside of that, Disney Pixar pretty much doesn't miss, in my opinion. But I mean, you can check the numbers on that. they rarely miss. So like I said, expectations were pretty tempered going in. And I wanted to see this in theaters, but with the situation we're in, decided to kind of take a step back and not see it in theaters. So I was pretty excited when it was announced that it would be released digitally, so I can get a chance to purchase it and watch it. So I was happy about that. So as far as setting the scene, obviously I couldn't get my usual theater setup. No chicken tenders, no blue raspberry icy. But I had a nice chicken BLT salad and a jug of water, um, um, and I turned on the TV and pressed play. That was pretty much it as far as like setting the scene goes. it's pretty tempered. Everything about this movie is tempered, for me anyway. But yeah, so that's the scene set. So as far as my tweet review goes, and this is weird because I like literally just tweeted this thing like 5 minutes ago. But my tweet review goes: Onward petered out of the gates a bit, but eventually stuck the landing with a spectacularly heartfelt adventure between two brothers. I enjoyed this movie. I was entertained the whole way through, except for parts of the beginning, as I said in the tweet review. It started a little slow for me. I kind of wish we would have gotten to the quest a little quicker. I understood they wanted us to kind of get to know the characters and how they operate within this world, but I felt like we could have figured that stuff out along the journey. But that's the way they decided to do it for this movie. So the beginning for me was a bit slow, but I was in for the long haul, so like I wasn't gonna turn it off or anything. That's the power you have when when you're watching things at home. Like if it's like, this is too slow, I'm out. You know what I mean? Whereas like if you spend your money at a theater, you're like, I mean, I'm at least gonna sit through it, unless it's like so bad that you're like, all right, I gotta walk out of this. But for the most part, you're gonna sit back and you're gonna be like, all right, I'll watch it. I'm in. When you're at home, you're like, man, if I ain't into this, you pick up your phone, you start getting distracted, you start doing other things. But again, I was in for the long haul, and I knew I wanted to podcast right after I saw it, so I was gonna watch it regardless. But like I said, beginning tad bit slow. Wish we would have gotten to the quest a little faster. But to its credit, as soon as you get into the quest, movie starts to take off. You really get to see the dynamic and the chemistry between Chris Pratt and Tom Holland's character. And even their relationship and chemistry with the mom, played by Julia Louis-Dreyfus. So like again, once the quest starts to go, it starts to kick itself into gear, and I really start to. That's like when the entertainment really starts to ratchet it up, and that obviously that amazing Pixar animation starts to take over. There's moments here where it's like, it looks so photorealistic, man. Where there's a moment where they're on the highway, and if you're of driving age, obviously, like, that feeling when you're on the highway, especially like, because Tom Holland's character is 16 and he's just getting on the highway for the first time, and it's scary as all hell. Like, and I personally remember, getting on the highway for the first time, I was scared out of my mind. And like and the way the cars are zooming past, and like he's trying to merge over and he just can't because he's like, they're going too fast. Like, I can't get in there. Like I remember that moment, so I really connected with that moment. But just looking at that highway and seeing those cars, and it's like, man, how the hell do they make these cars look so damn real? like it just looks like they it's amazing. Like the Pixar at this point, they're pretty much masters at the animation. Like it's I don't know if you can have a complaint, like, unless you go to like Toy Story 1 or something and look at the animation then. But like even like back then when Toy Story 1 came out, like, it looked great. So from that to the improvement we've got now is pretty good. So yeah, as far as the animation goes, they're always on point. And then the voice acting, in my opinion, was pretty good. Sometimes when you get bigger name stars, it sometimes it can take you out of it, and you're like, oh, I know that voice and I know that person. But for the most part, like, it fit, and it fit pretty seamlessly, right? Like I wasn't listening like, this just sounds like Star-Lord. And to be fair, Chris Pratt sounds like Star-Lord, but you know what I mean. But for the movie, it didn't take me out. Like I felt like he was the character Barley he was playing in the movie, and same goes across the board. To be honest, the voice acting was on point. I thought it was really well casted as far as voice acting goes, and I'll get into specifics when we get to favorite performance, but yeah, I think overall, again, I really enjoyed it. I do recommend it. Especially at this point, like, I mean, if you ain't got nothing else to do, and especially if you've got like kids, I think kids will enjoy it. You know, hopefully they can stick through that little first part for a bit. But like once you get past that, like it's you get on the quest, and then it's all go from there. But yeah, so those are my overall thoughts of it, and then now we can lead into what I think was the best moment of the movie. I think for me, like I said, where it really starts to ratchet it up is the quest, right? And so for me, the best moment honestly comes down to, or towards the end, I should say. And I think the best moment is after you've gone through the journey that they've gone through, you get to a portion where they kind of, hit a difficult patch, and they argue a bit. And then Ian, Tom Holland's character, starts to kind of reminisce on what this whole journey had been so far. That moment right there is like, it then starts to show you that the movie you thought you were watching wasn't actually the movie you were watching. And that kind of like wraps it all, like it wraps the whole thing up. And you're just like, oh, yeah. So I thought you kind of go in thinking, father, son. And in that moment you come out thinking brother to brother. And you're like, huh. Like, so it's like all of these things that he wanted with his father, he instead ended up getting to do them, but getting to do them with his brother. And so I think that right there was just honestly the best moment of the movie for me, because it put in perspective everything you had just watched up until that point. And so I was like, oh, okay. All right. Let's see what we're doing here. I got you. I like this. You got me, you got me here. And obviously it's Pixar. So the waterworks started flowing, and I was just like, oh man, they got me. Like, they got me. What was I just watching? I thought I was watching something else, and it turns out I was watching something totally different. And yeah, so for me, I don't even have any other contenders to go with that. That's the best moment of the movie for me. So we can get into favorite scene now. As far as favorite scene, so I got a couple contenders for favorite scenes. So as they're on the journey, there's a moment again, because it's there's going to be conflict here, and the brothers butt heads a bit, because they're on the same path, but they want to get there two different ways. And so they hit another rough patch a bit. This is a little earlier in the movie, and they don't want to talk to each other. Chris Pratt's character doesn't want to talk to Tom Holland's character, and so he puts in a cassette tape and turns up the radio. And then he pulls over the side of the road, and then there's a little convenience store, and he goes to get something to drink. And then the father, at this point, who's just a pair of legs, starts to feel the vibration of the music in the car, or in the van, and he starts to dance. So just these pair of legs, just dancing, and they're looking at him like, what the hell is he doing? And then they realize that, oh, he feels the vibrations in the car. And he's just dancing. And so he hops out of the car, and then he gets dancing, and then he gets out, and he pulls Chris Pratt's character Barley kind of onto the side of the road, and like, kind of like, come dance with me. And then of course they go ahead and pull Ian, Tom Holland's character, on.
What?
What is he doing?
I think he can feel the vibrations of the music, and he's dancing.
Wow. He is terrible.
Yeah, he's really, really bad.
It was just a very sweet moment that they got to share together because, you know, their father is gone, and then all they have now are just these pair of legs. And just for all of them having a moment and laughing and smiling together and sharing that moment together, was honestly it was super sweet to see and to be a part of. And so that's one scene that I really like. That's definitely a contender for favorite scene. And then second would be, not in any order, but like the second one up for favorite scene would be the drawbridge scene. And at this point, they're like at what looks like kind of like a little Grand Canyon almost, but there's a bridge, but you got to draw it down, but it's on the opposite side. So Ian, who they learn is a wizard and has, you know, some magic, has the staff, and he's gotta really believe, you know, and grant this spell and believe with every step he takes, and you know, he can walk across this big gap to get to the other side of the bridge. And obviously it's a kids movie, so you know he's gonna eventually make it. But like the way they play up the scene and the way they play up the tension in the scene a bit, you don't know whether he's gonna believe. Like obviously, ultimately, you know, because it's a kids movie. But like you're gripped, you know, the entire moment, and every step he takes, you know, you're like, oh my god, you know, you're breathing a sigh of relief because he just keeps taking it, and he's actually believing, and it's a moment where his brother is telling him, "You got this, man. I believe in you." You know, and if you have a sibling and having your siblings say that they believe in you, you know, and root you on is just such a great feeling. You know, I have a twin brother, so I can definitely, you know, this movie connected with me on so many levels. With the two characters in the movie being brothers, you know, it's just such a great feeling. And so, and at the beginning, before he takes his first step, they wrap some rope around him. And so he's like, just in case I fall, the rope will catch me. And he gets about halfway through walking across this big empty gap, the forever fall or whatever they called it. And Ian, Tom Holland's character, is just marching along and having a great time, and is being as confident as he's ever been. You know, because he's a little bit of a meek character, and he's not so confident, and it's one of the things he wants to do on his 16th birthday is be a new person and be more confident. You know, in this moment, he's the most confident you ever see him throughout the entire movie, and he's just walking along. You know, he's just walking along walking on air and not looking back, and the rope gives out about halfway through.
Okay, you fell. Was that so bad?
Yes!
Are you still alive?
Yes.
Okay, so now you know the worst that can happen, so there's nothing to be scared of, right?
Bridge Rigor Invisio!
Hey, you can do this.
And Chris Pratt's character, Barley's in the background, just kind of like, hey man, just keep walking, don't look back, don't look down, just keep moving. Because he knows if he breaks Ian's concentration, he's falling. You know, the kid's gonna lose all confidence, and so he gets to the last step, and he's, you know, Ian's super cocky at this point, and he gets to the last step, and he looks back, and then he realizes the rope hasn't been on him, and he freaks out and falls. but he's right there, and he grabs on it and gets across. But it was such a good moment because, again, they were able to grab you with the tension of, will he make these steps? And then he eventually does, and obviously it takes him believing in himself, and then obviously someone believing in him, you know, believing in him enough that he then feels the need to believe in himself, you know, and that was just a special moment. to be able to watch. I like that scene a lot. But the third contestant, which is my pick for my favorite scene in the entire movie, is they're at the end. They get the Phoenix Stone or whatever it is they need to complete the spell and bring their dad back, and they're also running out of time because the spell is over at sunset, but there's a curse on the last stone that they need, and this big rock dragon thing starts to form, and they do the curse. Their father starts to materialize back together, but somebody's got to fight and distract this dragon, otherwise they won't even get the chance to, see their dad. And so, and it's all Tom Holland's character Ian has ever wanted, was to see his dad, because when their dad died, he was in his mom's stomach, like he wasn't even born yet. And I think Chris Pratt's character Barley was probably like, I don't know, like 3 or 4 or something like that. Chris Pratt's character is like, hey man, I got this. You go see dad. And then it's such a touching moment, because then Tom Holland's character is like, no, you go say goodbye because you never got the chance to. I got this.
I'll go distract it.
What? No! If you do that, you'll miss Dad.
It's okay. Say hi to Dad for me.
No. You go and say goodbye.
What?
I had someone who looked out for me. Someone who pushed me to be more than I ever thought I could be. I never had a dad. But I always had you.
And then he goes all super Harry Potter, wizardry, Doctor Strange, Sorcerer Supreme on this rock dragon, and gives his brother that final moment to say goodbye to his dad. And after he's, finished defeating the rock dragon, he falls on the rubble and he can't get back up to go and, run up and see his dad. So he's just kind of peeking through the cracks, watching his brother and his father interact with each other. And it's, man, and at this point, like, the tears are just flowing, because you're like, man, he gave that up for his brother. And it's like, you imagine, like, the only thing you ever wanted to do is meet your dad, and then it's between you and your brother to go do it, and you give your brother the chance to do it. Like, it was super awesome to see, man. And just like, like, that's that brotherly love. That's that sibling love. It could be like, it could be your sister, your brother, whoever, whatever. Like, just that sibling, like, I got you. I'll give this to you. I'll sacrifice this for you, And they really, really hit that home in this movie, the sibling companionship and brotherhood, between the two characters. And yeah, man, that's it. Like, that right there, like, that was my favorite scene of the entire movie, because it was just like, yo, like that hit the feels, man. That made me feel right there, that was it. that was truly it. As far as favorite line is concerned, again, the ending, and I referenced this in the tweet, like it really stuck the landing, and a lot of my favorite parts and favorite lines, favorite scenes are coming from this end part. But my favorite line of the movie, it's funny because it's not even a spoken line within the movie. So, as I mentioned earlier before, there's a moment when they're at the end, they go through the path, they find the secret passageways or whatever, they get to the top, turns out they're back in front of the school, they're back at home in their hometown. And it's like, man, so we did all this for nothing. The diamond's probably in the freaking mountain, and they start to argue with each other. And Ian's obviously mad because he's like, if we just would have went my way, I gave you a chance and you messed it up. And that's kind of been an underlying thing throughout the movie, is Chris Pratt's character is kind of he's a lot to handle, and he's constantly kind of messing things up, right? And so And so it kind of comes out, it's revealed that, yeah, the rest of the town may think that, but, Tom Holland's character couldn't possibly think that. And then it turns out he thinks that as well, that he's just a big screw up. And so he blows up at him and calls him a screw up, and then takes their dad's legs and it's like, I'm going to spend, the last bit of moments I have with him, because now we can't even do the spell because you screwed up yet again. And so in that moment, they're sitting there looking at the sunset, because once the sun sets, the dad disappears again, and he's looking at his list. He was, as it was coming time to getting to see his dad, he was writing a list of all the things he wanted to do with his dad. And as he's looking at the list, he starts to realize that he actually was able to do these things, and he starts to check them off and check them off and check them off, one after another, one after the other. And then he gets to the very last line, and this is my favorite line of the movie. And again, it's unspoken. You're as you're watching it, you're just reading it on the paper, on his list, and it just says, "Share my life with him." And then he gets to sit back and he starts to reminisce, and to share my life with him isn't specific. It wasn't specific to the father. As he's reminiscing, he's remembering who was there for him growing up, who taught him to ride a bike, who taught him to drive and merge into traffic, who taught him to swim, who taught him, some wrestling moves, and so on and so on and so on. And it was his brother Barley the whole time. And so he ends up checking off to share my life with him, because he shared his life with his brother, and his brother was there for him the entire time, right? And again, at this point, the waterworks are just like, oh my God. I'm like, oh, this movie, they got me. Like, I was a little worried in the beginning, but they are nailing this right now. They are nailing this. And the tears won't stop flowing. Again, just having a brother, and just like I think if you've got siblings and you're watching this movie, you're just like, oh my God. It's just like, this damn movie, man. Like it gets to you. It gets to you. And I mean, and typical of Pixar, if the Pixar movie can't get you to cry, I don't know what will. But they do their job. They didn't fail in this one. They definitely did the job as far as getting you to cry on this one. So yeah, I didn't even have any other contenders for a favorite line. Like, that was just it. Unspoken and written on a piece of paper, and you had to be watching it and paying attention to notice it. But share my life with him, and as he's reminiscing on the journey they just went through, and growing up, with his brother the entire time. It's like he may not have had time with his father, but he always had a brother. And that shit got me. Like, just straight up, that shit got me right there. And that was my favorite line of the movie. And so, as far as my favorite performance is concerned, I liked Tom Holland's character, and I thought he was great. I really liked Julia Louis-Dreyfus. I thought she was good in it as well. Second runner up for me, honestly, would be Chris Pratt. I thought Chris Pratt was pretty great in this. Like, it felt at home for him. It obviously didn't feel like it was a stretch for him to do this role in any capacity, but he nailed it. You know what I mean? This is kind of one of those moments where it's just like perfect casting, and it was just perfect for him. Like, there wasn't too much he had to do, but I think he nailed the character, and the character being this Dungeons and Dragons fanatic, where the Dungeons and Dragons game actually is based on real life and the real magic that used to be in this world that they live in. And so he just kind of has the knowledge and everything, and just kind of like just being free. And there's moments where he explains, he had a last moment to have with his father, and when his father was really sick before he died. and he decided not to go in and not to see him, so he never got to say goodbye to him. And that was the last moment he said he was ever scared. And since then, he's just kind of this fearless bigger brother to Tom Holland's character, because of that one moment he had, and he never wanted to feel that way again.
When Dad was sick, I was supposed to go in and say goodbye to him, but he was hooked up to all these tubes, and he just didn't look like himself. I got scared and I didn't go in. That's when I decided I was never going to be scared ever again.
And so, you know, the line delivery there was just so perfect, and Chris Pratt, like, you can feel the emotion through it, and just the comedy that would like, that's what Chris Pratt does, is like his bread and butter is the comedy, and he nailed the comedy portions and again the emotional portions of it. I just think he did a phenomenal job in the movie. But even with that said, he was my second favorite performance of the movie, because my first favorite performance of this movie goes to Octavia Spencer as the Manticore, the half lion, half dragon, half, I guess not even half, I guess it'd be quarters, right? Quarter lion, quarter dragon, quarter scorpion character. She was great. like she was obviously Octavia Spencer is an Academy Award winning actress, and she's, you know, pretty phenomenal at everything she does. I don't think I've ever heard her do animation before, and she just nailed it. If I didn't go in knowing that was Octavia Spencer, like, I would have been like, oh, they must have got like a veteran voice actor to do this role, because she is phenomenal. She was like, I mean, basically her character was, she went from this once feared and adventurous and ambitious Manticore, and then, you know, turn her big kind of her big pub or whatever it was she was in into this kind of kids Chuck E. Cheese kind of place, where she's kind of become a shell of her old self, in fear of getting other people or putting other people's lives in danger through her journeys she would set them on. And so, you know, Tom Holland's character comes there and kind of gives it to her, and she kind of breaks out of that, and she's just, and Octavia Spencer the whole time is just nailing the line delivery, man, and the comedy, and you know, she's running this whole place and trying not to get bad reviews on whatever, you know, Yelp is in this world. You know, and it's just like, man, she comes off as so wholesome and so earnest, and then when she kind of breaks out of that and kind of taps back into the Manticore she used to be, you know, like, it's just, and again, just the line delivery, and every time she came on screen, like, you just had a smile on your face and she made you laugh. Like,
in a minute. Okay, maybe this place isn't as adventurous as it used to be. So it isn't filled with a motley horde willing to risk life and limb for the mere taste of excitement. But so what? Whoever said you have to take risks in life to have an adventure?
Apparently, you did.
Table 32 said the mozzarella sticks are called.
What have I done?
Well, it's not too late. I mean, you could just give us the map.
This place used to be dangerous.
Dangerous.
And wild.
Wild.
I used to be dangerous and wild.
Dangerous and wild.
I was like, man, like, Octavia Spencer should do more animation and voice work, because, like, she's awesome. Like, she is honestly, she's awesome in this movie. She was the breakout performance for me in this movie, like hands down. And again, the voice talent across the board is great, but like I couldn't stop thinking of Octavia Spencer and her Manticore character, and especially when you get to the end and she goes to and she's there to fight the rock dragon thing, and even that was great. Like she was great in those scenes, as well. Just like throughout the entire movie, like anytime Octavia Spencer was on the screen, or her animated character was on the screen, I was excited, and I was like, yes, like, give me more of her. I'm like, I will take more of her. I'll take more Octavia Spencer. Give me more Octavia Spencer, please. So as always, what comes with all these favorites has to be a least favorite, and this movie's not perfect. It's far from it. As far as least favorites are concerned, like I said, the beginning was slow, but that wasn't my biggest gripe. I'd say my biggest gripe of the movie is I had a pretty hard time connecting with the dad, because for the most part of the movie, he's just a pair of pants, right? So I think like it's a good thing they stuck the landing so well and wrapped it up and kind of flipped the whole perspective of the movie on you, from being, this father-son journey to being this brother-brother journey. Because, like, outside of, like, the few moments I mentioned where, they dance with their dad and he's just a pair of legs, and then there's a moment where Chris Pratt's character used to tap on his shoe and play this little dun 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 dun, dun like that kind of game with him. Like those moments of touching, and he's just a pair of legs at that point. But it's just still hard to like she's just some legs, man. How am I supposed to like connect with this? What I wish they would have done was like almost kind of something similar to Up, where you get to see the character be alive, and then you get into the aftermath of how the other characters react to the passing of said character. Whereas, like, I felt like it would have been a lot easier to connect to the father if we had seen moments of the father being alive. And, like, we see snippets throughout the movie, and you hear a lot about the father, and you see pictures and you hear audio, cassette tapes of the father speaking. But none of that really works enough for you to truly, truly connect with these pair of legs. You know what I mean? Like, it's just like ultimately it's just a pair of legs. And again, luckily the dynamic between the brothers was strong enough that you ended up connecting to that. But like, the reason why they were doing all of this was for the pair of legs that are sitting in the back of the van. And you just couldn't connect to them. So yeah, I just wish they would have been able to, define who the father was when he had legs, and then so when we see him as just some legs, we can at least connect to him more because we knew what he was when he was a whole person. So that was probably my least favorite part of the entire movie. And then again, just the slow start. Like, I feel like you could have taken out the school portions of it, and like I didn't need to see that Ian was awkward around people, and it was hard for him to make friends. Like, I didn't need any of that. You could have just gave me like the dad being around, and how the dad acted, and things of that nature, and then went on to the quest, and then kind of going on through there. But I don't make movies, so that's just my gripe. Regardless of that, I still enjoyed the movie. So now we come to the who won the movie portion of this podcast, and I think this time it's not a who won, it's a what won. And for me, what won the movie for me was the brotherhood between Ian and Barley, Tom Holland and Chris Pratt, respectively. I again having a brother, having a twin brother at that, just it the movie hit different, at having a brother, and then on another deeper level, having a brother and not growing up with a father made the movie hit even more different. You know what I mean? Because those moments, obviously, you would expect to share with your father, just like in the movie, I ended up sharing with my brother. And so like that, it just hit on a whole nother level for me. And so I was like, man, like that's it. Like that camaraderie, that companionship, that love, that brotherhood. And again, I think even if it's a brother sister or sister sister, I think that siblinghood in general, I think they nailed in this movie, and I think that's what really brings the whole thing together. It makes it such an enjoyable film, honestly. So that's what won the movie, for me. Like I said, I really enjoyed it. It's not perfect. Like I definitely it's. I mean, the competition is up against, as far as like Pixar's of the past. Like it's tough, right? It's really tough. Like it's not as good as any of the Toy Stories or Finding Nemo or Ratatouille, which is my favorite, or The Incredibles, which is my second favorite. But it's also not as bad as any of the Cars or Good Dinosaur. I mean, it's definitely, it's no Up, it's no Wall-E, it's no Coco, it's no Inside Out. Like, you see what I'm saying? Like, it's like the competition it's up against. Like, it's tough. It's hard. It's unfortunate that's what you compare it to when you're comparing it in the space of it being a Pixar film. So like, it's unfortunate like that. Like, its competition is like, it's unfair, but like it's still, with all that being said, and with it not being those classics, it's still a pretty great movie, I'd say. And I think if you're a fan of Pixar, it's still ultimately enjoyable. As I said earlier, with the Rotten Tomatoes audience score, which means nothing and everything, 95% of the audience loved it. So like, it's definitely a crowd pleaser. It's definitely an enjoyable movie to see and watch, especially with the family, with the kids. Hell, if you're a grown ass adult and it's you and your brother or you and your sister going to watch it, I think you'll enjoy it that way as well. Now that it's on streaming, you can put it on at the house as we're all practicing social distancing, and have a good time and enjoy watching it. So I like I said, I enjoyed it. I'd definitely give it another watch for sure. But yeah, I think Pixar, they got another one. Not to the caliber of their height, but they got another solid one in the batch for sure. Definitely another solid one in the batch for sure. So here we are at the last question of the podcast. That's cinema or that's not cinema? The verdict for Onward: that's cinema. That's cinema, man. That's cinema for me. And obviously, Marty's definition is, he prefers his cinema with human beings trying to convey emotional and psychological experiences to another human being. And granted, this is two magical elf characters conveying emotional and psychological experiences to each other. For me, that works. For me, that's cinema. Hey, Onward, that's cinema. As always, if a movie makes you feel anything at all, that's cinema. Peace.
Value with a film that's like a theme park film, for example, the Marvel type pictures, where the theaters become amusement parks. That's a different experience. And it's not even. I was saying earlier, it's not cinema. It's something else. Not cinema. It's something else. Not cinema. It's something else. Not cinema. It's something else.